The moon is both the most important and recurrent symbol throughout the series of One Piece. The moon in One Piece is mysterious to say the least, and there are an abundance of theories about the Straw Hats possibly voyaging into space, the lost moon races, Eneru's moon empire, and the potential extraterrestrial origins of the powers which instituted the reign of the celestial dragons. However, this video is not intended to address those theories directly. Don't get me wrong, I find all of those ideas fascinating and want to discuss those topics in greater detail, but I think it's important to first understand what the moon symbolizes in the world of One Piece and what it represents for the central narrative arc of the series. So we're on the same page, let's first define symbolism. In a work of fiction, symbolism is a literary device that uses symbols, be they words, people, marks, locations, or abstract ideas to represent something beyond the literal meaning. Throughout the series, Oda has frequently and consistently used sun and moon, day and night motifs to represent the central narrative themes in One Piece. By examining and understanding this symbolism, we may gain insight into the deepest mysteries in the world of One Piece. So what abstract idea is the moon meant to represent? In a word, the moon in One Piece is meant to symbolize hope. But before elaborating on this idea further, let's take a look at the most important instances of this symbolism throughout the series. From the very outset of the adventure, Oda paid close attention to the lunar phase, which may be used to construct a rough timeline of the early parts of the Straw Hats' voyage. Our tour from the library of Ohara's timeline is fairly comprehensive, which I will link in the description below, so be sure to check it out. During the Syrup Village arc, Luffy fights Kuro, captain of the Black Cat Pirates, under the light of a waxing crescent moon. Interestingly, the lunar phase in the One Piece world is the reverse of our own, which means the moon revolves around the planet in the reverse direction. What would be a waxing moon in our world is a waning moon in the world of One Piece. Working backward from Syrup Village, Luffy's voyage begins around the same time as a waning half moon, which in the One Piece world resembles the letter D. We see a waxing half moon when the Straw Hats celebrate the defeat of Arlong shortly before their voyage into the Grand Line begins. We see the moon progress from a waxing gibbous phase during the Whiskey Peak and Little Garden arcs. Under the light of the full moon, the Straw Hats depart from Drum Island after recruiting Chopper, the ship's doctor. A waning gibbous moon can be seen as the Straw Hats trek across the desert in Alabasta. Interestingly, we see a waning half moon, which again resembles the letter D, during the Jaya arc, where Monkey D. Luffy and Marshall D. Teach, Blackbeard, first cross paths. The Skypiea arc takes place over the course of the following day and night. Chapter 292, in which the knock-up stream splits the island of Jaya, permanently separating Noland and Kalgra, is titled To Meet Like the Half Moon Hidden by the Clouds. Those who live on Sky Island treasure the earth, none more so perhaps than Eneru, whose delusional god complex leads him to depart this mortal plane for the celestial endless Vars, the moon. Like the Shandorans of Jaya and Skypiea, many of the ancient tribes or civilizations entrusted with protecting the poneglyphs have myths or legends with prominent sun and moon, day and night motifs. Very notably, 3 of the 4 civilizations we know to have been entrusted with the road poneglyphs, which are needed to chart the course to Laughdale, the final island of the Grand Line, where One Piece is hidden, are strongly associated with this symbolism. The fishmen of Ryugu Kingdom were in possession of a road poneglyph 25 years ago during Roger's era, which has since been moved. The fishmen live at the bottom of the sea, but dream of a day when they can again live on the surface. In reference to this dream, the Sun Pirates, led by Fisher Tiger, transformed the hoof of the celestial dragon into the emblem of the sun. The fishermen and the sea kings are waiting for a promised day when they can someday walk the path toward the sun, when the mermaid princess and a sovereign from a distant sea are at last united, and the Ark Noah fulfills its ultimate purpose, carrying Ryugu Kingdom to the surface. The clans of Wano, aside from the cursed Kurozumi clan, all have family names which contain the word moon. Kozuki means light moon, Shimotsuki means frost moon, Amatsuki means heavenly moon, Uzuki means rain moon, Fugetsu means wind moon. The Kozuki clan of Wano were responsible for creating the poneglyphs, on which the true history of the world is inscribed. Kozuki Oden translated these stones and guided Roger the Pirate King to the final island Laughdale, where the Roger Pirates discovered One Piece and learned everything that happened in the Forgotten Void century. The crest of the Kozuki clan is a crane which takes the shape of a crescent moon. Similarly, we see a waning crescent moon on Oden's clothing and a waxing crescent moon used as the symbol of the resistance against Kaido in the ongoing Wano story arc. Toki, the wife of Oden and mother of Momonosuke and Hiyori, is a member of the Amatsuki clan. She was seemingly born outside of Wano during the Void Century and through the power of her devil fruit jumped forward through time in hopes of reaching the day when the world is overturned. Just before her apparent death 20 years prior to the start of the series, she declared a prophecy of a day when 9 shadows cast by the moon strike down Orochi and Kaido, restoring peace to Wano and bringing the new dawn. She says to the people of Wano, "You are the moon unaware of the dawn beneath a waxing crescent moon," before succumbing to her injuries. The Mink tribe of Zou reside atop the back of Zunisha, a giant elephant cursed 1,000 years prior to the start of the series to walk the world's seas for a yet-to-be-revealed transgression. They too guard a road poneglyph and derive their power from the moon. Sulong, which translates to moon lion, is their true form, only revealed by the light of the full moon. Like the Kozuki clan of Wano, the Minks have a long-held prophecy of a coming new dawn. Pedro gave his life to protect the Straw Hat Pirates on Whole Cake Island because he came to believe so strongly that Luffy and his crew were the ones meant to fulfill this prophecy. Pedro met Roger at the tail end of the Pirate King's voyage, but he was too young to join the Roger Pirates. He later created a crew called the Knox Pirates. Knox is the Latin word for night. Pedro sets out in pursuit of the poneglyphs to lay down the foundation for the dawn of the world. He tells Perospero that Knox is synonymous with the moment just before dawn, because there is no night that doesn't end in a sunrise. Indeed, we have good reason to believe the Straw Hats are the ones meant to fulfill these long-held prophecies. Monkey D. Luffy was born in Windmill Village on Dawn Island in the East Blue. The title of the first chapter of the series and both pilot one-shots is Romance Dawn. Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates sail aboard the ship 𝙬𝚘𝚙𝚎 as they embark on a voyage across the One Piece world, bringing light to the dark places they visit. The identity of the fourth race or society entrusted with the road poneglyph is not yet known. We see Roger's voyage in pursuit of the road poneglyphs in chapters 966 and 967, at which point in time Big Mom was already in possession of one of the four. We don't yet know where she stole it from, but perhaps we can venture a guess. Big Mom harbors an intense animosity towards the Giants of Elbaf. Her use of Ikoku sovereignty, the same attack form as Dorian Bragi, indicates she perhaps spent more time with the Giants than we are yet aware. She tried to ally with them by marrying her daughter Lola to Loki, the Prince of Elbaf. We saw during Big Mom's flashback that the Giants celebrate the winter solstice. They fast for 12 days to celebrate the death and rebirth of the sun. From this we know there is some form of sun and moon, day and night motif associated with the Giants of Elbaf. Of course, this would imply the road poneglyph from Elbaf was stolen by Big Mom, and thus is now located on Whole Cake Island. The road poneglyph, which is now missing, was located on Fishman Island 25 years ago during Roger's voyage with Odin. These are, of course, not the only instances of sun and moon or day and night motifs. When Eneru arrives on the moon, he discovers a vast, technologically advanced city inhabited by automatons. This city, like the Sky Island from which Eneru originated, is named Birka, and in a cave, Eneru discovers engravings which imply a much greater significance to the central narrative arc of the series. When Oda pictured a young Blackbeard in SBS, he drew him sitting alone and crying beneath a waning crescent moon. Black Maria's song in chapter 992 describes two apparent lovers or friends separated, unable to meet on a snowy night, and at last reunited under the light of the full moon. Very notably, the song 𝙬𝚘𝚙𝚎, introduced in Brooks' flashback, features verses which allude heavily to this symbolism. The final two verses read as follows: "Going to deliver 𝙬𝚘𝚙𝚎. Today and tomorrow are dreams through the night. Waving our goodbyes, we'll never meet again. But don't look so down, for tomorrow night the moon will also rise. Going to deliver 𝙬𝚘𝚙𝚎. Let's all sing with the dawn, a song of waves. Doesn't matter who you are, someday you'll just be bones. Never ending, ever wandering, our funny traveling tale." Interestingly, 𝙬𝚘𝚙𝚎 is sung by Toki to Momo and Hiyori and by other members of Roger's crew in chapter 967, which concludes with the discovery of Laugh Tale. It's clear Oda intentionally used this symbolism from the very beginning of publication. Not only was the lunar phase tracked closely from the first story saga, Romance Dawn version 1, the earliest iteration of the story, sees him face off against a rival pirate named Crescent Moon Galley, or Gary, or Jerry, Larry, or Terry. In the final panel, Galley, or Gary, is revealed to be a member of Luffy's crew. So what can these many instances of sun and moon, day and night motifs tell us about the central narrative arc and themes in One Piece? Before putting this all together, I think there are a few points which must first be established. Oda has buried many clues throughout the series of One Piece, and by piecing them together, we can gain insight into the deepest themes and mysteries in the story. A large part of what makes One Piece so engaging to read on a long-term basis is how adeptly Oda interweaves elements of the central narrative arc within the week-to-week storylines following the adventures of the Straw Hat Pirates. In The Anatomy of Story, John Truby writes, "Audiences love both the feeling, reliving the life, and the thinking part, figuring out the puzzle, of the story." One Piece is a series which excels at both aspects of storytelling. In the recent Reverie podcast hosted on September 20th, Matt Owens, the writer of the upcoming live-action Netflix series, spoke about his pitch meeting with Oda where they discussed the adaptation of his work, during which Oda stressed the fact that all the elements of One Piece were intentionally and intricately crafted. Nothing in One Piece is without purpose. As someone who has, for well over a decade, spent many hours puzzling over, discussing, and debating the myriad of mysteries in the One Piece world, this really resonated with me. Sage Hinden from Just Right has an excellent video analyzing the qualities which make the Harry Potter novels such effective mystery stories, which I will link in the comments section below. Many literary techniques are used to bury clues throughout the story, but the real takeaway point is the fact that the mystery feels fair. The story is intentionally crafted such that when answers are later revealed, because the clues were planted and well hidden, the reader or viewer is left with the sense that the mystery was solvable. This principle may also be applied to Oda's writing technique with One Piece, where every detail, every offhand line of dialogue, spoken by even minor characters in the vast world, may later be revealed to foreshadow a major event, introduction, or character moment. At the same time Oda answers one question, he asks two more. Where one through line ends, another winding narrative path begins. All of which makes reading and discussing One Piece so fun and engaging. Because readers understand the game to be fair, because each revelation is built on years, sometimes decades worth of buildup, new questions beg to be answered. Because readers' faith has been rewarded, there is an inherent sense that the answers must be buried somewhere in the story, that by combing through the clues, untangling the web of interconnected character arcs and storylines, the mystery may be solved. I want to talk about this particular subject in greater depth in a future video, but I'll leave it here for now. I say all this to preface the idea that Oda has well-primed readers for the ultimate revelation of the mystery of the treasure One Piece, and that because he began the series with the end in mind, we can potentially deduce the nature of the treasure and the mystery to be revealed on Laugh Tale by examining the most consistently used symbols and understanding their intended meaning. One Piece began with a simple premise. The former pirate king Gold Roger was executed, and whoever discovers his treasure, hidden in a secret location, inherits his title and status. Over the course of what is now a very long adventure, this simple call to action has been complicated as we have learned more about the former pirate king, the treasure One Piece, and the world in which the story takes place. Oda creates a morally complex world from the very outset of the voyage. He doesn't paint with a broad brush in generalizing the actions of any one group. Within the first 3 chapters we're introduced to Luffy and Kobe, both framed as morally upstanding characters. Luffy's dream is to become the pirate king, and Kobe's dream is to become a marine admiral, a fated enemy of the future pirate king. Although Luffy's mentor Shanks is shown to be a good man, willing to sacrifice life and limb for Luffy's well-being, the second chapter introduces us to Alvida, a brutal tyrant also flying the Jolly Roger. In Shelltown, we're introduced to Helmeppo and Morgan, corrupt marines who abuse their positions of authority. Zoro is branded a criminal for a noble act, and thus widely misunderstood as a bloodthirsty demon. We see this attitude reflected around the world towards figures like Roger, the former pirate king. Antagonists throughout the East Blue alternate between pirate captains and marines. Oda makes it clear right out the gate that the line dividing good and evil does not evenly parse between pirate and marine. Roger is established to be more than an ordinary bloodthirsty cutthroat pirate like those seen in past swashbuckling tales of adventures on the high seas. Chapter 100, titled The Legend Begins, introduces the enigmatic figure Dragon, later revealed to be Luffy's father and the leader of the Revolutionary Army, accompanied by a quote from Roger which reads, "These things cannot be stopped, an inherited strength of will. One's dreams, the ebb and flow of the ages. As long as people hunger for freedom, these things shall exist." Logtown marks the transition from the prologue to the first act of Luffy's hero's journey in the Grand Line, and this quote sets the tone for future revelations by reframing our understanding of the Pirate King. I won't go into too much depth here about Roger's voyage, but I have another video in which I chronicle his adventures and examine any lingering questions and mysteries pertaining to the former Pirate King. Inherited will, the passage of time, pursuit of impossible dreams, piracy itself, are all means by which people in this world pursue freedom. As the story progresses, we learn about the Will of D, the Poneglyphs, the Void Century, and the coming New Dawn, a promised day when the world will be turned upside down. In their approach to Logtown, Nami reads a news story about another violent coup d'etat in the small island nation of Vera. We later learn in Nolan's flashback that Vera was once a peaceful, idyllic kingdom. Oda confirms in Volume 25 SBS that this is indeed the same location. Oda responds that a better question to ask is what is happening in the One Piece world at large. We learn that the One Piece world is restless. There exists a revolutionary army intent on unseating the tyrannical celestial dragons, who presently hold power. The great era of piracy has persisted for 24 years following Roger's execution, but soon a successor will take up Roger's mantle as the next pirate king. So in that context, let's examine where the moon fits into the picture and how it relates to the deepest themes in One Piece. As we have seen, the Minks and the Kozuki hold a prophecy of a coming new dawn. Pedro described the world as being in a state of night. This promised day is the same legend foretold in the prophecy held by the fishmen, the day when they can walk the road toward the sun, when Noah, guided by the mermaid princess and the sovereign from a distant sea, carry the citizens of Ryugu Kingdom to once again live on the surface, when Fishman Island is destroyed and Zunisha at last reaches its destination. During this long night, the moon is the symbol of hope, which reflects the light of the sun and illuminates the path of those who will one day rise up, shoulder the burden of history, and turn the world upside down. We have since learned that One Piece was not left behind by Roger on the final island. Rather, it was discovered by the Roger Pirates, who arrived 25 years too early to act on the true history of the world revealed to them on Laugh Tale. Joy Boy left behind the treasure 800 years earlier at the end of the Void Century. We know that the current epoch in the One Piece world began 800 years ago with the end of the Void Century and the birth of the world government. During the Water 7 saga, the Straw Hat Pirates rescue Robin from the clutches of the world government's elite intelligence and assassination agency CP9. Here, Robin's enemy is referred to as the world and its darkness, the alliance of 170 nations which control the One Piece world and punish those who study history of the world's lost age recorded on the poneglyphs. We do not yet know the whole truth of the One Piece world, but the details we have learned are illuminating. During Robin's flashback, Professor Clover has a conversation with the Five Elders, the highest authorities of the world government, from which we learn that the world government rose to power during the Void Century. 800 years ago, there existed an ancient civilization which possessed great technological prowess and 3 weapons of immense power named Poseidon, Pluton, and Uranus. In opposition to this ancient civilization, 20 kings banded together and formed an alliance. These 20 kings emerged victorious and founded the world government. Among this group of monarchs were the Don Quixote family of Dressrosa and the Nefertari family of Alabasta. 19 of the 20 kings and their families ascended to live in the Holy Land 𝚤𝚗, and their descendants are the tyrannical celestial dragons, the world nobles who rule with an iron fist. The Nefertari monarch elected to remain in the world below for unknown reasons, though Cobra, the current king of Alabasta, scheduled a meeting with the 5 elders during the Reverie in order to determine the cause of this defection. The 5 elders are publicly regarded as the world government's highest authority, and at the center of the holy city 𝚤𝚗 in Pangaea Castle there sits an empty throne before which the blades of the 20 kings and the 50 lesser noble families symbolize equality of the world's nobility before the seat of power. Yet we also learn during the Reverie arc that a shadowy, enigmatic figure, Lord Imu, sits atop this throne in secret and commands the allegiance of the world's highest authority. Presently, the celestial dragons live as false gods, wielding their power with absolute authority. Yet in some seas, those who carry the name D are regarded as the enemies of the gods, the enemies of the world's nobility, as revealed by Rocinante and Law's flashback. It is no small coincidence that this terminology is first used in an arc where Luffy confronts Don Quixote do Flamingo, a fallen celestial dragon. The chapter in which Luffy emerges victorious and brings the heavenly demon spider crashing down is titled Heaven and Earth. Roger's crew learned the truth of the world and yet chose not to act. Roger was a dying man and thus could not wait for the appointed day prophesied by the Sea Kings, the Fishmen, the Minks, and the Kozuki clan. He instead turned himself over for execution and used his dying words to intentionally inspire a great era of piracy, in which his successor, guided by fate and the pursuit of impossible dreams, inherits Roger's will and discovers the treasure at the appointed time. The next pirate king will be forced to shoulder the burden of history and confront the world's darkness, which will result in a war of cataclysmic proportion, as forewarned by Whitebeard at the Battle of Marineford. Whitebeard declined Roger's offer to learn the location of One Piece, but was in part made aware of the world's history when Roger revealed to him the meaning of the name D. Similarly, in the note Odin left Toki, he speaks of a massive war 20 years in the future terrible enough to split the ocean itself. He predicts that the primary figures of this great war will be the ones responsible for liberating Wano and opening its borders for the return of Joy Boy. As I mentioned earlier in the video, chapter 967 opens with Toki and other members of Roger's crew singing the song 𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝 as they voyage the Grand Line in pursuit of the road poneglyphs, and it closes with the discovery of Laugh Tale. I believe the lyrics of this song provide a clear explanation for the narrative and thematic arc of the series and the importance of the moon as a symbol of hope. The first verses describe a setting sun, going to deliver 𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝, following the sea breeze, riding on the waves. Across the salty depths, the merry evening sun. The birds sing as they draw circles in the sky. Farewell to the harbor, farewell to my old hometown. All sing out with the dawn as the ship set sail. Waves of gold and silver dissolve to salty spray as we all set sail to the ends of the sea. Going to deliver 𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝. We are pirates sailing through the sea. The waves are our pillows and the ship is our roost, flying the proud skull on our flags and on our sails. Now comes the storm through the far-off night. Now the waves are dancing, beat upon the drums. If you lose your nerve, this breath could be your last. But if you hold on, the morning sun will rise. The song describes a crew of pirates, adventurers traveling, beset by tumultuous stormy seas, whose faith must be placed in the morning sun, a new dawn which will eventually rise. Going to deliver 𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝. Today and tomorrow are dreams through the night. Waving our goodbyes, we'll never meet again. But don't look so down, for tomorrow night the moon will also rise. Going to deliver 𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝. Let's all sing it with the dawn. A song of waves. Doesn't matter who you are, someday you'll just be bones. Never ending, ever wandering, our funny traveling tale. The last two verses describe perfectly the present state of the story world of One Piece. The sun has now set, vanished from the sky, but the moon will rise to reflect its light and illuminate the voyage of those traveling the seas guided through the night by impossible dreams. It's no small coincidence that this song opened the chapter in which Roger discovers One Piece and learns the history of the world. Roger names the island Laugh Tale to honor the tale full of laughs left behind by Joy Boy, the never-ending, ever-wandering, funny traveling tale described in 𝙬𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝. I believe 𝙬𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝 describes Joy Boy's adventures in the antique age of piracy which predates the modern epoch of history. Its upbeat melody is juxtaposed by a melancholy tale of friends, pirates, whose time of adventure comes to a close and are forever parted. Many believe the D's are directly descended from the remnants of the ancient civilization destroyed by the 20 kings. While this is certainly a possibility, it would make for a fairly one-sided conflict and leaves many questions. What inspired the change of heart in Vivi's ancestor, who agreed to join the 20 kings and oppose the ancient civilization, but declined to ascend to 𝚤𝚗 and live as a god? What does the possession and deification of monstrous weapons imply about the moral character of the ancient kingdom? What role did Imu and Joy Boy play in this conflict? What techniques does Oda typically employ in writing conflict, and what can they tell us about the dissolution of the world which predates the Void Century? I'll elaborate on this topic and attempt to answer these questions in greater depth in a future video, but for now consider the possibility that Joy Boy led a group of pirates or adventurers during the era of the Void Century. They were aware of and tried to prevent the escalating conflict between the 20 kings and the ancient civilization, but their attempts at preserving peace failed. Imu was the instigator, the deceiver, the true devil with whom the 20 kings made a pact to gain the power to topple the ancient civilization and ascend to live as gods in the Holy Land 𝚤𝚗. This demon now sits in secret on the empty throne, ruling the world from the shadows for these past 800 years. My belief in regard to the predecessors of those who carry the name D is that they were simply a group of friends, adventurers, and pirates, like the Straw Hats or Roger Pirates. They together sailed the seas, united only by friendship and shared ideals, visited places around the world, and made many allies. Sake in One Piece has been used to symbolize the formation of familial bonds. Luffy, Ace, and Sabo become brothers. The Straw Hat Grand Fleet become children of the Straw Hat Pirates through the exchange and sharing of cups of sake. Roger and Whitebeard share a drink before Roger at last turns himself over for execution, a scene we see in a flashback shortly before Whitebeard uses his dying words to echo those of his fallen rival and friend. The sake in the song 𝚬𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝 here refers to this shared bond. Joy Boy may be the name of the group itself, the leader of the group, or perhaps some being of supernatural power diametrically opposed to Imu, representative of the sea and its power. In any case, this group of pirates tried to stop this conflict, but failed. I believe the Kozuki originator of the poneglyphs was perhaps part of this group, and thus a D in all but name, which we see reflected when Odin, like Roger, smiles just before his death. Joy Boy saw the sun was setting on his age, that the promise made to the mermaid princess would remain unfulfilled. This group of friends or adventurers failed in their efforts to prevent the rise of dark forces and the fall of night, and thus disbanded. As the lyrics in 𝚬𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝 say, waving our goodbyes, we'll never meet again. But they take the name D, which looks like a smile and a waning half moon, and is the initial for the word devil, the name by which they are now called by the new false gods. But don't look so down, for tomorrow night the moon will also rise. The Sea Kings during the Fishman Island arc allude to the previous failure of the Void Century. Surely all will go well this time, they declare. The song Black Maria sings alludes to friends or lovers separated on a snowy night, reunited under the moon. This song may allude to the 9 Scabbards' current battle against Kaido, as well as the friends parted by the failure to prevent the rise of the dark forces which now control the One Piece world. This symbolism was also used in chapter 292, titled To Meet Like the Half Moon Hidden by the Clouds. As mentioned previously, the waning half moon resembles the letter D. Noland and Kalgara are forever parted, but 400 years later their promise is fulfilled when Luffy rings the golden bell on Skypiea, vindicating the fanciful tale of a lost city of gold told by Noland the Liar. Recognizing that their time had come to an end, they devised a means to preserve their message for the future, believing someone would someday rise up to shoulder the burden of history and right this ancient wrong. They were labeled devils by the new gods of the world, thus becoming enemies of the gods. They hid One Piece, the key to turning the world upside down, in the most unreachable of places, where it has now resided for 8 centuries. Their friends, scattered across the Grand Line, agreed to protect the path to the treasure. The closest of these allies hid the road poneglyphs, which point the way to One Piece. Joy Boy understood that only a person who can make friends and allies of many nations and people could ever bring the light of the new dawn. Thus, the treasure was hidden in a place that only one who possessed this requisite quality could reach. Roger was the first one in 800 years to arrive, and yet he discovered that the time was not right, so Roger passed the message along. Whitebeard did the same, but now the time is right. 10 years for Shirahoshi to be born, 15 to grow. The two monarchs must meet. Fishman Island must be destroyed. The only way to reach Laugh-Tale is to sail the Grand Line, hemmed in by the Calm Belts, inhabited by the Sea Kings who also await a promised day. It's almost as if the Grand Line itself is a gauntlet, a crucible intentionally crafted to forge a successor by necessitating full circumnavigation of the globe, bringing any contender into contact with many people in the world's most dangerous seas. Mihawk refers to Luffy's greatest strength during the Battle of Marineford as his ability to make friends or allies of anyone he meets. Indeed, this has been critical to the Straw Hat's survival. It is only through befriending the Minks and the Samurai that the Straw Hats are now poised to possess the 4 keys needed to reach the final island, and it was their unwavering faith in Robin, their friend, which was strong enough to inspire a willingness to stand up to the world and its darkness, which has given them the means by which to decipher these ancient writings. Of course, fate has played a heavy hand in Luffy's voyage, but it should be noted that the path to One Piece is designed as a system to winnow competition and select for the right heir to Roger and Joy Boy's will at the right time. The sun set on Joy Boy's era, bringing an end to his funny traveling tale, but the moon rose to light the way in the night as adventurers in pursuit of impossible dreams set out to sea, guided by fate, expressing the immutable hunger for freedom held deep in the heart of man, and one day soon someone able to court the favor of those same friends entrusted with protecting the written truth, the poneglyphs, and those capable of deciphering them, the Kozuki clan, capable of surviving the rigors of a journey across the Grand Line, will reach the impossible island Laugh-Tale, discover the world's true history, and the treasure One Piece. There is a sort of fractal nature to Oda's storytelling. Often individual story arcs may be viewed as a microcosm of the larger central narrative conflict. We see aspects of these self-similar patterns in many of the Straw Hats' adventures. Joy Boy sailed the seas in the age of the setting sun, and like the Straw Hats had many adventures. It is no small coincidence that we see through Oden's flashback of Roger's voyage a pre-incarnation of Luffy. Joy Boy may then be viewed as a pre-incarnation of Roger, whose adventures and moral attributes likely closely align with those of the Roger Pirates and the Straw Hat Pirates. Binks Saki alludes to an awareness of one's mortality. Doesn't matter who you are, someday you'll just be bones. Roger recognized his days were numbered and devised a plan to inspire a successor, as did Joy Boy before him. Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates will at last arrive on the final island and discover One Piece at the right time to bring about the new dawn. Before closing this discussion, I want to run through a few ideas which I'll be discussing in greater depth in a future video, but for now, please indulge a little bit of speculation. One point I have not yet mentioned is the globe in the Library of Ohara, which shows not one, but many moons revolving around the world of One Piece. Some have speculated that this globe is likely an inaccurate geocentric model, but I think this is rather unlikely. The scholars of Ohara were rather enlightened, so it would seem out of character for them to cling to an outdated or archaic geological model. Technology in the One Piece world is sufficiently advanced to have evolved a heliocentric model. Yet we have only seen one moon to date in the night sky. So how can we explain what appear to be at least 7 celestial objects circling the Earth in Clover's study? The flag of Alabasta, the Kozuki crest, and a shield adorning a Shandoran statue may give us a clue. Each symbol contains a large circle surrounded by 8 smaller circles. All of these societies protect poneglyphs, and thus have ties to Joy Boy and the Void Century. As many have speculated, the world of One Piece is not in its proper state. As the Sea King said, even the whales cry out for the day the world will be set right. The red line appears to be an aberration, and its destruction may unite the world's seas, creating the all-blue Sanji hopes to find. Brookstream is to reunite with Laboon, but significantly we see all island whales are draped in scars from ramming against the supercontinent which encircles the One Piece world. The fact that this is innate behavior for Laboon species implies heavily that the red line is out of place. So perhaps the crests used by the Kozuki, the Nefertari, and the Shandorans are meant to symbolize the world as it once was, as it should be. Perhaps there were once 8 moons freely traveling the skies of the One Piece world. Consider, Sulong is said to be the Mink's true form despite the fact that they can only transform under the light of the full moon. What if there were once 8 moons? Could this not then explain this discrepancy? If there were once multiple moons, where are they now? In Eneru's exploration of the ruins of Birka, he discovers the ancient cave paintings which indicate the Moon City may be deeply connected to the central narrative arc of One Piece. Many have speculated this somehow may be related to the ancient weapon Uranus, and I think this is the correct line of thinking. Uranus is the only weapon which is yet to play any role in the story. In Greek mythology, Uranus is the sky god, and his blood was used to create the giants. In One Piece, Pluton is said to be a massive warship, and Poseidon is the name of the mermaid princess capable of controlling the Sea Kings. Both of these weapons could confer immense power to a seafaring society in a world dominated by oceans. So what sky-based power could work in tandem with the power of Pluton and Poseidon? The moon, or moons, which govern the tides. The 8 moons which once freely traveled the skies may have been destroyed, but what if they are now bound? The giants of Elbaf are heavily inspired by Norse motifs, and in Big Mom's flashback we see an object on Elbaf so massive it dwarfs even the mountains. Perhaps this object is inspired by or directly analogous to the mythological tree 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚛, which in Norse mythology connects the mortal realm to the world of the divine. Could then the missing moons be bound in the branches of 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚎, a tree so massive it extends into space? Could they represent the divine realms such as Asgard? Consider the sky island Birka, from which both Eneru and Aruj originate, shares its name with the ancient city on the moon and a real-world Scandinavian trading port which rose to prominence in the Age of Vikings, the inspiration for the giants of Elbaf in the story world of One Piece. We have already established the use of sun and moon, day and night motifs in giant culture through the celebration of the winter solstice. Eneru used attacks named after Thor, the Norse god of thunder, introducing another potential connection between Birka, Elbaf, and Uranus. Elbaf is likely one of the major story arcs remaining post-Wano, so we may soon see some of these things revealed. During Oden's flashback, we see Shanks and Buggy stand opposite Blackbeard. I mentioned earlier, in SBS, Oda drew a sketch of young Teach sitting alone and despondent beneath a crescent moon. Buggy tells Shanks that Blackbeard has never slept. Much emphasis has been placed on the fact that Roger and Joy Boy are waiting for the right successor. The One Piece world is in a state of night, and when the right person discovers One Piece, they will be responsible for bringing about the new dawn. The Straw Hats are united by their joint pursuit of impossible dreams. Interestingly, Teach also believes in the power of dreams, and thus, despite serving as a moral foil to Luffy, does not fit the bill of thematic antithesis. In a previous video, I detailed the manner in which Shanks and Teach may be fated enemies. Shanks may be descended from the celestial dragons killed by rocks, and Teach, by blood or belief, may be the successor to the will of Xebec, whose ambition was to become the world king, a position presently occupied by the enigmatic Emu. Xebec's ambition may betray some awareness of the world's deepest mysteries, but how is this possible when the truth is only recorded on the poneglyphs? The God Valley incident occurred 13 years prior to Roger's successful circumnavigation of the globe and discovery of the Rio poneglyph. The world awaits a new dawn, and thus is in a state of night, asleep. In this epoch of history, dreams are the guide for those who pursue freedom. So what then can we say about someone who never sleeps? Shanks responds to Buggy by saying Teach's adventures must be twice as fun, but this comment is accompanied by a twinge of irony, for everything we know about Blackbeard, including the sketch of his early childhood, imply his life has been anything but joyous, and his adventures are far from the funny traveling tales of the Straw Hats, Roger Pirates, and Joy Boy. At Marineford, Whitebeard told Teach he is not the man Roger is waiting for, not the one to inherit Roger's will and discover One Piece, and I firmly believe this to be true. The inability to sleep is not a boon, but a curse. This is yet another topic which I would like to discuss at length, but for now I'll leave it with a question. What could Teach's inability to sleep be intended to communicate narratively and thematically? How can one dream without sleep, and can a person fundamentally lacking in this critical moral or ethical value ever inherit the true will of D and the treasure One Piece, and by extension bring about the light of the new dawn? The last thing I would like to touch on is the manner in which Oda's use of sun and moon, day and night motifs brings the series into alignment with the universal patterns of mythological stories. Luffy's adventure closely maps to the cyclic hero's journey or the monomyth as outlined by Joseph Campbell in The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Roger and Joy Boy may thus be considered earlier incarnations of the hero, and indeed we see members of Roger's crew have now taken up the role of the mentor. What's fascinating about these patterns described by Joseph Campbell through his work with comparative mythology is that they arise spontaneously. George Lucas intentionally crafted the story and characters in Star Wars based on these universal motifs, which popularized Campbell's model for a generation of Hollywood filmmakers. But many authors have stumbled into this mythic structure of storytelling. Neil Gaiman, whose works tend to align closely with the hero's journey, has said he read half The Hero with 1,000 Faces before forever putting it aside. He would rather his stories unintentionally fall into this universal pattern than purposely, even subconsciously, write in a formulaic or predictable manner. My impression here is that Oda likely falls into the category of author whose work unintentionally aligns with this mythic structure. The cyclic arc of the hero's journey applies to individual characters who put on the mask of the hero and also the society as a whole. The hero's journey is a microcosm of what Campbell refers to as the Cosmogonic cycle, the arc of destruction and creation of the universe, or in the case of the story world, a society. From The Hero with 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell wrote on the rise and fall of civilizations. Schism in the soul, schism in the body social, will not be resolved by any scheme of return to the good old days, or archaism, or by programs guaranteed to render an ideal projected future, futurism, or even by the most realistic, hard-headed work to weld together again the deteriorating elements. Only birth can conquer death. The birth not of the old thing again, but of something new. Within the soul, within the body social, there must be, if we are to experience long survival, a continuous recurrence of birth, to nullify the unremitting recurrences of death. For it is by means of our own victories, if we are not regenerated, that the work of Nemesis is wrought. Doom breaks from the shell out of our very virtue. Peace then is a snare, war is a snare, change is a snare, permanence is a snare. When our day has come for the victory of death, death closes in. There is nothing we can do except be crucified and resurrected, dismembered totally, and then reborn. The narrative pattern of the cosmogonic cycle is described by Campbell as the waking from deep sleep, emanation, followed by the dissolution back into the world of dream. The known world, the society, emanates from the source of creation, then dissolves back into a dreamlike state, a cycle likened to death and rebirth. We see these ideas reflected in the myths and stories told in the world of One Piece, which describe the central narrative conflict of the series. The winter solstice is celebrated on Elbaf to mark the death and rebirth of the sun. As Campbell said, when our day has come for the victory of death, death closes in. There is nothing we can do except be crucified and resurrected, dismembered totally and then reborn. Whereas stated in the final verse of 𝚖𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝, doesn't matter who you are, someday you'll just be bones. But fear not, for the moon will rise and guide the way in the night, and a new dawn will someday rise. We may then liken Joy Boy's age to the dissolution phase of the cosmogonic cycle. Whatever world preceded the void century dissolved from a waking state. The sun set on Joy Boy's era, and the world is now asleep. Those who pursue freedom, like the Straw Hat Pirates, are guided through the night by the moon, a reflection of the sun's light and impossible dreams. One day soon the world will wake. The nightmarish incarnation of the shadow that is the world government and the devil which resides on its throne will be abolished, and the emanation of a new society will bring about the light of a new dawn. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like. If you want to be notified when future videos go live, please consider subscribing and hit the bell icon. Most important, what do you think these symbols can tell us about the story of One Piece? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below.